Hi everyone! Before we proceed with forecasting the future, we need to acknowledge where this came from on the 10th of October, because we really cannot make any forecast until we're very clear where that dump came from. So the first place where that came from, and also we know that it came from the scammers, but everybody is governed by time cycles, so the time cycle should be able to predict that scam that took place. So the first thing that I wanted to show you is that I had a table here, which is my table number 6 from the solar eclipse trading strategy. In this table I have proven before that when the price on the day of the solar eclipse is below the nearest fee value, then we go higher. Then the solar eclipse goes higher. Then the price action goes higher after the solar eclipse. And vice versa, when the price on the day of the solar eclipse arrives higher than the nearest fee value, then it dumps. The reason for this is that the fee values are magnetic. They act as magnets. These fee values, this sequence, by the way, is created by famous mathematicians. I had a separate video for that, which I explained the guys who have created the fee on power sequence. The fee on power sequence is different from Fibonacci. It starts with the fee, and it's different sequence from Fibonacci because this sequence here is aiming to detect big pivots. It's not interested with local pivots. The Fibonacci sequence is used to detect local pivots. It is used in daily time frames trading. The fee on power sequence is very extended. When you start putting fee on power, you can see there is a very big gap between the values. And in that way, we're detecting big pivots. And these values are acting as magnets. So what happened for Bitcoin is that the price action arrived at 115,000 on the 21st of September, when it was the day of the solar eclipse. That's what the price was, 115,000. What is that closer to, 103,000 or 167,000? It is closer. The nearest fee value that it is closer to is fee value 24, power of 24. On fee value on power 24. And that is 103,000. So that is your fee value, and according to the fee value, according to this sequence, this is your magnet. This is what is attracting the magnet, and that is what is making a point of control there, the 103,000. And as the eclipse arrived higher than that, then it is gravitating towards the nearest fee value. These are like charging station. If you're driving an electric car and you start running out of fuel, you're gonna go to the nearest charging station. So here is the 115,000 on, sorry, I'm looking at Ethereum at the moment. Here is the 115,000 here. I'm looking at the wrong chart. Oh my god. 115,000 is here on the day of the eclipse. And in that table 6 that I have developed 2 years ago, I had discovered that when the price on the eclipse is higher than the nearest fee value, it wants to go back to that fee value. It wants to say hello to that fee value. It's like when you're single and you're dating various women and you're taking them, let's say, to a favorite motel, right? And then one day you marry and you're happily married, but then few years into your marriage, suddenly you will start kind of that motel will start playing on your mind, and you, if you're in a good relationship with your wife, you'll just say, oh, I want to take you to a motel, la la la, and you'll take her to that motel. That is how it goes with these phi values. They're very strong magnets, and they don't forget. Sooner or later, we want to go back there. Even if we have moved on in our life, and even if we have moved on a lot with our thinking and everything, eventually those previous phi values, that the previous bottoms, they will drag us there. And unfortunately, this is the nearest one. We're nowhere near 164,000. So that is the main reason why we're having all of this bearish. What I just said, it doesn't explain the date. It doesn't explain why we dumped on the 10th. After that, I'll show you why that was. But for this particular explanation, the price level, that's the most important explanation, is understanding why this price level is acting as a magnet. Why it went all the way down to 102K on Binance. It went all the way down to 102K. That's your nearest phi value. 103K. Because the other one is very far off. If we were in a range that is closer to this phi value, then we would have considered the price action to be below the magnet, and therefore after the eclipse will be aiming to get to that magnet. So the eclipse also always intensifies the cycles, the other cycles. It is a cycle in its own, and it also intensifies these magnets, the Fion power sequence. Same with Ethereum. Ethereum arrived on 21st of September. It arrived on value 4447. Now this is a bit more difficult to calculate because I had to do it manually to calculate. One second. Where is my Ethereum? Why did I did? Yeah, the calculation is like this. So I've taken the lower fee value is 3571 and the higher fee value 5778, and I have established that the middle is 4674 between those two fee values, right? So if Ethereum arrived on 4,400, around that means it is closer to the lower fee value, which is 3571, and that means that it is higher. The eclipse arrived when Ethereum was higher than the closer fee value. Higher than the closer fee value. 3,500 is the closer fee value. Where did we dump to? 3,478, exactly on the closer fee value, exactly to the closer fee value. That's where it dumped to. Because it arrived, the eclipse arrived when Ethereum was at a price higher than the closer fee value. If it was lower, if Ethereum was ranging on a price above 4,000, that's the halfway point between those fee values. So if Ethereum was ranging on a price above 4,674, then we would have interpreted it that Ethereum arrived at a price lower than the next fee value, lower than 5,708. And in that case, the eclipse would have acted as a facilitator to push the price action near the next fee value. This is a theory which I developed in 2023 when the price action was very boring, and that's when I developed this table. That's when I developed this table number 6 from the Eclipse trading strategy. You will say, well, if you know so much, why didn't you fucking predict it? Because as a human being, I have very big limitation is that when the research needs to be very serious and very deep, it actually removes me from trading. And when it removes me from trading, I end up making trading mistakes simply because I'm focused on the research. So this is a very highly focused research. This is not just something that you can do in 1 or 2 hours. It requires a lot of thinking and a lot of kind of tuning into that mental and emotional space is not easy when you have trades going on. And it's a very big limitation that when one person is working on the same project and they're doing everything, they're doing the research, they're doing their own trading, they're also providing forecasts to people, it's getting really a lot. And unfortunately, whenever I have hired people to do work for me, because this is the work that I need somebody on the background to be doing, they've always made mistakes, and then I spend longer checking their mistakes and finding their mistakes, and it's actually more costly of my time, and then it starts agitating me a lot. And then it's the moral problem comes, how much do you pay them when they have given the hours to do work and they've made the mistakes? And then I end up having to pay them like half to what we have agreed or something like that. But it's not worth it. Nobody has been able to help me with my serious research. That is the reason why I'm so fucking behind on it. Since October, I haven't had a chance to actually update my table, to have a look if there are any deviations from the rules. Haven't had that chance to do it. And this year, I have no chance to work on my table. So unfortunately, that table was on the back burner, that research was on the back burner, and I didn't manage to think of it. You know, I should have been able to conclude from the day from the price of the solar eclipse. I should have been able to conclude that given that it arrived higher than the closer fee values for both Ethereum and Bitcoin, we will expect a downtrend after that. Until we say hello to that fee value. It has to say hello. It said hello to it. And that's it. It should be going up from there. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Sorry, looking at the wrong chart. But, my brain needs to be very calm to be thinking about that research, because that needs to be the reason why I could not think about this year is because I knew I was behind on it from last year, from October. I knew I was behind from October on that research, and I was just dreading having to go into October and complete all of this part of the table. It requires a lot of concentration because these are very different metrics here that need to be completed. And because I haven't done that, then I really kind of switched off from that research. So yes, that's the explanation why I didn't predict it actually before. Very behind on serious research. So in a way, I cannot wait to finish this trading year so I can actually go proper in my research in 2026 and 2027. I really want to go back in that mental space that is just totally dedicated to research. Okay, so that research is forecasting, and the table here, let me just enlighten you. And this is what the table is forecasting for Bitcoin. These are the fee values that we're ranging now between them, right? So very unlikely that we will be gravitating towards 167 this year. We need a lot of support in order to extract ourselves. So if I have to sit down and do serious research, I need to go back in that table, my table 6, and I need to find out from the past when we have been in that condition, when we have been above when when the price has been above the nearest point of control. How long did it take? I need to have a look in these days in order to see how long did it take before it started heading up again. And again, this requires a lot of concentration, and at the moment I don't have the space, the mental space to do that, because I'm looking at my trades. I need to monitor when I'm gonna be selling now, etc., etc. So if anybody works accurately and they don't make mistakes, then if you want to participate in this research, you can contact me. Most of it is done. It just only last year it needs to be updated, and this year. Okay, so at least we know now why we got to this price. Unfortunately, didn't manage to predict it, but at least we know why we got to this price, which is better than not knowing anything. So the next thing is we need to know why these dates happened, right? Okay, so coming back now to my page, table number 4 of the solar eclipse trading strategy. You can see here in October, by the way, the people who have the daily time frames forecast, you get an extract for the given month from the solar eclipse trading strategy. So you got this extract from 1st of October to the 31st of October, and you see here all of these that are highlighted in green. What are they showing? So if they're one after the other, if there is an occasional green or occasional red, it doesn't really mean very much. It just means a daily vulnerability. But when they're one after the other, that clearly indicates a trend. And you can see here that from 1st of October all the way until 8th of October, this is mostly green. So that clearly indicates a trend. Why didn't I highlight it in my previous forecast? Because it fucking got invalidated in the previous month. Look at that. This was supposed to be a trend as well, but it got invalidated. Instead of going up, it started heading down. I already explained why it headed down, because the eclipse arrived on a price that was higher than the closer point of than the closer fee value, and the fee value acted as a magnet. But the fact is that it got invalidated, so I didn't fucking know how long this invalidation will be going on for. And that is why I could not use it in my forecast for October. That is, it just really crazy sequence of events that was committed to prevent me from forecasting October. The data is here lined up, but personally I did not trust it. So I did not trust it to an extent, so I can highlight it in the video for October. I trust it to give it to people to use, and I use it as a historical occurrence. This is history. History cannot be wiped out. But I didn't trust it enough so I can say it explicitly in the previous video. Look at the eclipse cycle, the whole October, from 1st of October to 8th of October, we're looking at a rally, and then from 10th of October to 12th of October, we're looking at a dump, because we have 3 red candles here with very big significance. So 1 red candle doesn't mean very much, but 3 red candles in a row, that communicates clear vulnerability in this section. And that's when we got the dump. We got the dump on the 10th of October. According to this table, it should have been on the 11th of October, because to get such a big dump, that means that the previous day was not great. So the previous day was not great, and then the next day is even lower. So it came one day earlier, but still it's a quite good forecast. So the October daily time frames forecast so far has been good. What did we get on the 13th? Not exactly to the date. Obviously the 12th should have been green. Here it is now. On the 12th, suddenly the partial eclipse becomes active. You also have that in the daily time frames forecast. So the partial eclipse is in your daily time frame forecast because currently we are on a partial solar eclipse. The first column is calculated across all solar eclipses, across all types, and the second column is calculated across the partial solar eclipses. I use both. I never know which one will be more accurate. And according to this, look at that, the partial solar eclipse had the highest percentage probability of a dump on day number 19 after the solar eclipse, which was the 10th of October. And then again red on the following day, on the 11th of October, and then green, then 50-50 on the 14th, and it got invalidated. Now finally, both those got invalidated. Exactly when it is the time for me to make the next forecast, these two cycles got invalidated, so I can't fucking use them. So 14th of October, that was supposed to be green yesterday. I was very insistent yesterday on Twitter forecasting that it would be a green closure. Why? Because since 1st of October this was very accurate. That's why. I gave one reason there. I'm not gonna give there to Tom, Dick and Harry the real reasons. Those were real reasons as well, by the way, but they're not. I use several confluences before I open my mouth publicly. So that was my very serious confluence why I was bullish for yesterday, and I was expecting a green closure. It was accurate in this section. It was accurate in this section too. Why couldn't be accurate in this section when it was accurate on the previous event? It was accurate on the 10th. Why couldn't be accurate for the 14th? Why couldn't be accurate for the 15th? So suddenly when the time came for me to make a forecast, this is no longer accurate, and I'm not gonna use it. People who have the daily time frames forecast, you got these dates in front of you, but I cannot use them now for my forecast for the future, because suddenly both dates in a row got invalidated, the 14th and the 15th. What is going on the 15th is still quite low. It still doesn't really have a chance of closing on a green by the look of it now. At one point it was going towards the green. So, and also when they get invalidated, it's not a big number of days that got invalidated here. For example, in this section, clearly the 25th was invalid, and a couple of more days. There were 3 days in total. From 26th of September, this eclipse cycle was already running accurate. It started running accurately from 26th of September. I don't want to prove to you now because that will delay the video, but I have already checked it. So from 26th of September, here it is, the green, and that's it, going up from 26th of September, exactly as it is indicated here. From 26th of September, majority is green. Here it gave us a high probability on the 30th that it will be red. Here it is, 30th was red. So from 26th of September, the eclipse cycle was back in operation. It was inaccurate only for 3 days on daily time frames, but it was enough for me to lose faith in it and to stop using it and not to use it for the October forecast. Okay, so according to this table, where we are now. According to this table now, this is a contradiction here. The partial solar eclipse is forecasting a bottom around 16 or 17, and across all eclipses is forecasting a top on the 17 and 18. So we just have to wait and see. I cannot really have a favorite in this situation here. But given on the previous invalidations, so the partial solar eclipse is invalidated here on these 2 dates. This is I don't know how interpret that. If these are invalidated, if these greens are invalidated, does that mean that we're heading for a bottom on the 16 or 17? Or does that mean that we just have to move to the other fractal? Does that mean we have to move to this cycle here across all eclipses and just conclude that we're heading for a top? I don't know. It can be reasoned in both ways. Both ways of reasoning are correct. So just by using this cycle, we really don't know, but we're heading for a pivot, right? Just by using this fractal. After that, when I make a forecast for the days ahead, I will give other cycles, but just from using these cycles, we cannot conclude whether we're heading for a bottom on the 16 or 17 or whether we're heading for a top. One of them. Okay. but at least we know why we got that dip. Here it is. This section here between 10th, 11th or 12th clearly highlighted on both metrics that it will be a pivot low, because there are several daily time frames in a row that are red, and that's what means vulnerability. Only one of is not that vulnerable, but 3 in a row, that gives us vulnerability. And then if we're going to be using that cycle, we can just zoom out. So why am I using it now? Because it showed accuracy between 1st of October to 13th of October. That's whole 2 weeks. This cycle was accurate. So this is broadly speaking, what is ahead of us is going up. You know, if you stop worrying about the local here, whether it will be a local bottom or a local top, broadly speaking, both cycles are going up. You see, there is no red. There is no red coming for the rest of October here, except 24th of October. And 24th of October was actually highlighted by one of the fractals as a bottom. 24th of October. 25th is given as a bottom by two of the fractals. Right? And then the eclipse is giving 24th of October as a 24th of October as a bottom. Right. And then what we use here, so that table that I showed you, that is across all years. Right? And the second lot of metric is across all partial solar eclipses. But now we're looking at something different. And what we're looking at here is where we are now in the solar eclipse path, and that is like where I think day number 24 or whatever day we are into the solar eclipse. We're around day number 24 after the solar eclipse. If you want to know exactly, you just have to go like this. We're day number 23 after the solar eclipse right now. Okay. Oh, today is day number 24, sorry. Today is the 15th. So what we need to do now is look at the previous few years when we had that solar eclipse. Previous few years exactly on where we're now, day number 24 after the solar eclipse. So yesterday we got a red. And today we're getting a red. I'll change it. If we today closes on green, I'll change it. But for now, it's running as red. So clearly, we're not following the path of the solar eclipse, of the last solar eclipse that was in April. Very clearly, we're not following that. We made a crash on the 10th of October. There was nothing like that on the 17th of April. A lot of red here, nothing like that in April. So clearly, April is invalidated. We're not following that path. What fractal is that? That is the deep orange fractal. We were on the deep orange fractal for some time. Look at that, it was working very well, and suddenly it got invalidated. What is the yellow fractal is more accurate. Suddenly we're more accurate. We're the yellow fractal is more accurate. So the yellow fractal comes from the season. These are the most important cycles: the last solar eclipse and the last solar eclipse in the same cycle. So the last solar eclipse in the same cycle is heading, according to that, is heading for a top on the 18th of October, and the last solar eclipse in the same season, the last solar eclipse in the same season in October 2024 made the top on 29th of October, which is day number 2678, day number 28 of the solar eclipse, and this time around that will be the 18th of October. And 25th of April also made the top. Suddenly this fractal comes back accurate. It converges here with the other fractal. Both of them agree that we're heading for a top, right? But that data that you got there, that data is across all partial solar eclipses. You see this data here that is heading that we're going to be doing a bottom soon on the 16th of 17. That is across all partial solar eclipses. A simple table. Look how much information. We have to be very careful how we extracting the information and what conclusions we're making and what will be our priorities. My priorities are these last few years because the planets were nearer to where the planets are, the heavy planets. So that is why we always use the previous cycle and the previous seasonal cycle. In terms of a bottom, there is nothing here that is showing a bottom on the 10th. On the 10th of October, we need to dig some previous cycles going back to what are the biggest bottoms for Bitcoin. The biggest bottom is 21st of September 2022. That is actually 18th of October. So we'll see if 16th to 18th of October makes a bottom. We will know that for some reason that cycle wants to say hello, and the reason is, I said from the beginning of the video, is that where the price of the eclipse arrived way too above the nearest phi value, and the phi value is pulling it down like a magnet. Okay, we'll see if this will manifest as a bottom on the 18th, but personally I expect that these will be higher, that we're heading for a top on the 18th, because the planets were near to our planets today. 2022, the planets were not that near us. Next, 2023 should be important as well, because that's when we had Mars in Scorpio. We haven't had Mars in Scorpio since then. So I'm gonna get a fractal from Mars in Scorpio actually. But let me see if I don't have to make you wait very long. I can do it live. Come on, Mars in zodiac signs. Okay, so Mars entered Scorpio on 12th of October 2023. So we come here on 12th of October 2023. Let me get a fractal. Come on, 12th of October 2023. It's all up. Nothing in common with what we're getting now. And I'm gonna put it in red color to symbolize Mars. So I got copy. And then what is the day when we got Mars this year? Is 22nd of September. Okay. 22nd of September. We just want to identify if it could predict some pivots. Ha ha ha, nothing in common, nothing in common. Let me put it in a purple color to stand out. Nah, totally different. That topped on 4th and then 14th. Next stop on this is 20th of October. So far, it hasn't really predicted anything. It has predicted this rally here, and that's it. Hasn't been able to predict anything else. The last entry of Mars in Scorpio was a lot more bullish than what we're getting now. So clearly we're not impacted by Mars in Scorpio. But I will leave this fractal because I want to check if it's going to be able to predict at least the top on the 20th of October. And then, oh yeah, well, at least what is useful to see is that another cycle, that is just additional confluence here, that another cycle is predicting 25th of October bottom. Now we have 3 cycles now predicting 25th of October bottom. So at least it's useful for that. But we're no way following the trajectory of Mars in Scorpio in 2023, when the last time it was there. Let me just... did I show you now the values for Ethereum before I close this table? Sorry, I'm jumping around covering different things, but I think while this table is open, let me just show you Ethereum values. So what we're expecting here is 5778 price for Ethereum this year. Very unlikely that it will go beyond that price. Okay. And I've got also, do you want to know Solana? Solana is between 199 and 322. I need to check when it arrived on the eclipse where it was closer to, but I haven't had time to check that. But that's the maximum that we're getting this year, 322, according to this table. Okay, so let me come back now to explaining where we got the 10th of October dump. Right. So why I didn't highlight it in the video that these are vulnerable times, why I didn't say it explicitly to direct your attention to this, is because that cycle was not accurate in the last week of September. because it didn't predict it accurately here, therefore I couldn't really use that cycle to explicitly say to people in the video, yeah, look at this is shaping as a bottom. Oh, actually I did say in the previous video, I did say we're shaping some kind of a bottom. Oh, I've gone offline now. 1 second, I need to charge something. Hold on, I'll come back to you in a minute, okay? I need to go back to my chart.